What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of CFP Talks. In this week's episode, Raman and I are breaking down our 6 for 6 CFP class. We give you three key points that we had with this class, and it's not what you think. So please stay tuned to take a look at what we did in this class. Additionally, we have some links for you at the bottom of this video. If you are interested in potentially joining this class after you watch this video, please book an assessment with me underneath this video. Additionally, one of the key tools that we use in this class are QBank. We are offering a 7-day free trial to all of our YouTube users that you can click below as well. And we look forward to seeing you next week. What's up, everybody? Welcome to CFP Talks. My name is Joe Nissim, and with me, as always, is Mr. Raman Singh. He's got a beautiful background. He is in Tampa, Florida. He is signing in remotely just to do this episode because you
Just
love the CFP exam so much.
you know what? We can never skip the CFP Talks podcast. It's
I
it's
don't
it's
know.
important.
You're a CFP nerd. You couldn't get away.
I you know what? I do take pride in the fact that I'm a CFP nerd. Matter of fact, when I meet my prospects, my clients, and for the practice, I tell them I'm a CFP tutor, CFP instructor, and they're like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yes, this is why you should work with me."
That's a
Take home the
great
millions.
that's a good t-shirt idea. CFP nerd.
CFP. You know what? I'm down. You want to make
$1 million idea. Okay,
you,
we gotta cut that out and post. I don't mind wasting my idea.
Right. Everybody gets a free CFP nerd t-shirt. That's what this.
On the CFP board. Thanks, CFP board. Finally, our dues did something.
Right, exactly. Man.
So let's dive right into it. Um, this was one of the most exciting classes that we've had.
Yeah.
Um, I've been doing a version of this class. This class was actually our 10th class that I've done, the
Well.
second with you.
Hmm.
And obviously, bringing in a second teacher, and especially with somebody with your skill set, was really game changing for our class. And I've been chasing this perfect class for a very long time.
Hmm.
As any instructor would want, we always want to try to get everybody in class or as close to everybody in class to pass the exam.
Of course, yeah.
And this was such a unique, wonderful experience because we had 6 people in our class all take the exam and all get their preliminary passes, which is just incredible. I know, like you and I were texting the whole time, and I'm like, blah 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 pass. I'm like,
Yeah.
blah 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 pass. I'm like, man, that's a good start, 2 for 2.
Yeah.
And then the third one came. I'm like, all right, 3 for 3.
Yeah.
And then we had the last 3 people on the last day. So, we had a Friday, a Saturday,
One,
Tuesday, I think it
yeah.
was, and then Thursday.
Yeah.
We're sitting there on Wednesday, we're going, and I think I was chatting with you. I was also chatting with my fiance. I was like, it would be great. I said, we got a real legitimate shot of going 6 for 6 here, but we never know what happens in the exam room, right? Sometimes as instructors, we go, this person's probably going to pass. And then, there's sometimes people panic in there. Sometimes they start second guessing themselves. There's a
Right.
lot that can go wrong in the exam room. It's a very fragile place. But I was thinking to myself that night, I was like, I think we really have a shot here. And then the first one came in, the second one came in, and it was like right at the end of the day because this person was on the West Coast. We get our 6 of 6, and I
Yeah.
was like, we did it.
Christmas in July, baby.
I
Remember that?
can't believe we
Remember you? Do you remember that episode when I was like, man,
yeah, Christmas in
Christmas
July.
in July, baby. But no, it's definitely, it just shows that the process we have implemented with the program and with the right structure and the right set of people, and then keeping these classes at a decent level rather than just exploding it to 50 students. I think all that kind of factors in, and this is where, NISM tutoring does stand out, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think there was a couple of really unique things in our process. And specifically with this class that I think this class did an incredible job with. And I think that as a whole, as a group, that we really succeeded. And I want to kind of highlight those three things as to why I think this really worked the way that it did. And I think the first thing is their fundamentals.
Yep.
We get people who are coming in from all different, and this was a unique group because we had one, two, three first time test takers, and we had
Right.
three second time test takers or more.
Yeah.
So, and some of those people were year five of trying to get their CFP. Some people, it was their third attempt. Some people, it was their fourth attempt. So, when we kind of looked at the group as a whole, we kind of had this good mix of first time test takers and second time test takers. Um, but I think the one thing that we really emphasized, you and I, especially in the first 4 weeks of class. For those of you who don't know the structure of our class, it is up there on nismtutoring.com. But the first 4 weeks that we do this class is a all open answer assignments,
Yep.
which are meant to refresh your fundamentals. And I think this is one of the make or break things with the exam is you got to have good fundamentals. And a couple
Absolutely.
of these students were working with me prior to group class to work on those fundamentals. Raman, when we're talking about fundamentals and the open answer, why did you think that the open answer was so much more effective than just doing what a normal CFP student does, which is I got the review books from Dalton or Denko or Zahn. I do the end of section quizzes. I do the practice problems throughout, and then I'll dive into the Q bank and I'll do some more practice questions, and then I'll lather, rinse, repeat. Why do you think that this, like what we've designed, is so much more effective?
I'm going to give you slightly of a long-winded answer if you don't
All
mind.
right, go for it.
So growing up in India until I moved to the States. I moved to the States when I was 12. Um, so I completed seventh grade and portion of eighth grade in India. And when I would get tested, like those final exams and
Yeah.
midterms, dude, they will give us a one-page questionnaire with like 15 questions, and it would say answer these questions, and they give us like blank answer sheets, like blank sheets just to write on.
Hmm.
And then we literally would sit down and be like, okay, midterm had like 15 questions, and we see a question, we could like fill stuff in. And then when I moved to the States and I started going to school here, obviously I destroyed schooling here because it was just so easy. Why? Because all the questions, even if it was AP classes, they're all multiple choice questions. And the reason I'm telling you that is because the thing is, when you have open-ended questions, you actually have to think about what you know,
Yeah. You can't
right?
run
You can't,
away.
you can't just you can't wiggle your way out of it. Like, oh, I think it's this. Versus with open and with answer choice question, multiple choice questions, you can kind of lean as a crutch, as you've said it before in the past, right? And thing is, if we're already building our foundation on a crutch, we're building a weak foundation. And this is why when I remember like the first cycle that we did together, and I'm like looking at the material, I'm like, holy crap, like these are open-ended questions. Like, man, this sucks for the students, but in a good way, right? It's kind of like, man, like
Yeah.
this is not like an easy thing for them.
Right.
And if you don't know this stuff, then don't prepare yourself going into CFP exam. I take this knowledge base for granted because I speak about it so often, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is this, this is this, this is this, because
Mm.
we talk about it all the time. But for the student who's taking this test, and if they can't answer this stuff on an open-ended, in a question, that means you're, I mean, I might sound aggressive by saying that, but I'd say you're setting yourself up for failure.
I
You
don't
know?
think that's aggressive. I think that's true. And I think the more the worst part about it is you miss detail.
Yes, exactly.
And this exam is about detail, the attention to detail that we required from our students, even in the fundamental portion, was like, you're missing this. Why is the sales charge like this? Why are they selling off this muni bond? Show me that you can do this calculation, which gets lost in translation with multiple choice because the number one thing that you want to do with multiple choice, and it like taps into this part of your brain that's like win, get a high grade. And then I will try to get that grade. Even if I'm manipulating my way into an answer, I still got a good grade.
Right.
But do you actually know the material? And again, this is when we talk about fundamentals, and you saw me slapping my hands and getting annoyed, and I say annoyed, but I really was trying to push our students into going, where's your attention to detail?
Yeah.
Because if you don't have the attention to detail in class, it just doesn't magically happen on exam day.
Right.
We were slapping our hands. Where's your detail? Do you know that detail? Do you know that little nuance or part of this concept? Because you and I both know that when CFP develops those questions that are really wordy, those big paragraphs, or as the multiple choice questions that you and I were writing, and we're sitting there and we're putting together A, B, C, and D, and some of the differences in the answer choices was that attention to detail.
Right.
In my opinion, that attention to detail is the difference between you knowing and not knowing. More importantly, when they change the question and it feels different, oh, if you don't know detail, you're so
Oh
screwed.
yeah, and I think this is where that one class exercise we did where we presented the students with a quiz. Now, granted, it was multiple choice, but we had already selected the answers, and it's kind of like,
Yeah,
hey, look at this quiz. The answers have already been selected. Confirm if those answer choices are if these answers are right or not. It's kind of like you be the teacher and grade the test.
correct. Yeah, it's we did something called an error analysis
Error analysis, yeah,
where the quiz was answered and justified, meaning you were actually the answer was chosen and all the math was there, all the justification, and then you had to play inspector and actually go in there and look and say, is this the right answer choice? And if so, is this the right justification? And that's kind of a mind fuck type of exercise,
yeah,
right? It makes your head hurt
it does.
because you have to think about something in very heavy detail.
I mean, I would just see students and they were like, oh, because we'll do the rounds in the class,
Yeah,
and they were like, oh, but this, and that's when you start realizing, like, okay, like, where's my knowledge base with the material? And
mm,
do I feel good about it or not? Or do I feel confident with it or not? I think that is such a great exercise, very unique, because it truly allows you to look at things from every single perspective. And I think you even said it to the students. It activates a different side of your brain
yeah,
because now instead of you trying to just answer a question, you're slowing things down and you're an inspector and you're trying to inspect like okay, what's going on with it. You're like a detective at that point, right? So you just activate a different side of your brain, and it's just very, very, very hyper focused strategy, which also makes you learn at the same time.
right,
And then
right.
another thing I do like about how one thing that we have with our program is we don't just say like, okay, answer A, B, C, D. It's just kind of like, okay, answer A, B, C, D, and then write your justification why. Like it's like you write your own justification or explanation on why you selected B.
Yeah.
So it's easy just to be like, okay, I picked B, but why? Like we want to know the why you picked B. What's your rationale behind it?
Yeah, and to me the why is more important than the actual answer because then I know you can replicate it. If you're getting something right for the right reason, I know you can replicate it in the future and that's something that you can start to put in your back pocket because I like to think about the CFP exam like the messiest room in the world. And if there's clothes everywhere, even if I just clean up one little corner, it kind of starts getting some momentum. I clean that corner.
Yeah.
I can go stand there now. Now I clean the next corner. Okay, now two things are done. Now I got three things are done. Now the bed is neat. Oh my God, now I only have the left side of the room. And that's the way that I feel like CFP studying feels like is that every time you get something that you feel good about and confident about, and you can kind of put in your pocket, it's one less thing to worry about. And the overwhelm starts to come down
Yeah.
because I have good attention to detail. I know why I'm answering those questions. Where if I'm wiggling my way through a question, I think we both know that in the back of your head, you're sitting there and going, uh, That could be very wrong next time.
Yeah. And and thing is, I tell students it's kind of like, yeah, whatever test bank you're using, if you end up scoring high on this test bank because you've seen these questions 3 times, at the end of the day, that score doesn't matter. The only score that matters is the CFP exam scores. So
Correct.
like don't cheat yourself in to believing that, oh, well, I'm scoring 85% on this material because I've hit it 4 times. And I feel
Right.
like, in our class, whenever these students, because we do this open-ended exercises and we use the flashcards and the videos that you have put together, I feel like majority of the students, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they just do the test bank what once? Majority of them?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. I mean, I know sometimes people are like, hey, can I go retake this test because they did poorly the first time around. And then, but they talk to us first, like, hey, can I go and retake this test? And then
Yeah.
we kind of evaluate their situation, like, okay, like, hey, like, okay, you have time, go ahead and do it. Or if you don't have time, be like, nope, keep moving forward because we know exactly what you need to be doing, right? And I think that is also, do you hear the dogs in the back?
Oh no, not at
Okay,
all.
okay, good, man. But that also helps them understand, like, okay, you know what? I do need to focus on the fundamentals, and I don't want to end up wasting my time around just retaking and getting that false sense of high grade, but without actually learning the material.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, especially if you've been studying for the exam and you put a lot of time in, you're going to naturally want to take exams that are to your strengths. And it feels good to take an exam again and go, I got a 50 the first time and I got a 70 or an 80 the second time. There's improvement. Yes and no, because we don't necessarily know the influence of what you remember. If
Right,
those two quizzes are 2 months apart, then yeah, then maybe because you're not necessarily remembering those questions and you've done a bunch of open answer and read and all these things have happened, you're not going to remember. But for me, I know personally, if I take a quiz one time and I review it and I know what those answers are, I'm going to remember 50 to 60% of those answers.
yeah, 100%.
Not every single one, but again, that kind of manipulates your score, and we have no idea what's real and what's not.
Right,
And so, a lot of times when you're going back and you're doing something a second time, again, if you can, you're coming back and having to explain something a second time, it's really different than just going and plopping an answer.
right.
And I'll tell you this, multiple choice is like doing a puzzle with a hint button on.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. I mean,
One of those four answers is right.
yeah, you already know that you have a 25% shot at it.
But like, I don't know if you ever do a Wordle or like the New York Times puzzle.
No.
It's like I do it every day because I'm a nerd. But it's, I like these little like brain puzzles, especially like if I'm on vacation, I like doing that. But there's people online do these whole websites dedicated to hints for these puzzles.
Wow.
And like the second you see the hint, you go, I know what it is.
Yeah.
And it doesn't force you to actually do it and correctly. So if you're always doing it with the hint button on, you're actually never really doing the puzzle because you never put the words together. You never figured it out that if this is here and then as you start to do it more, you start to kind of go, "Oh yeah, that can't be a this word because we want this combination of letters here." But if I see the hint, that's it. It's gone.
Yeah.
It's out.
And
But
there's
if I see
on
it, I can't
exam day,
unsee it.
on exam day, there's no hint button there, right? Even though, like, yeah, if you got four answers, multiple choices, but the playing field is different at that point,
Yes.
you know?
What do you think the second thing was?
I'd say accountability. And I think this is where we set ourselves apart. I feel like that's what our students love about it. And I think these students, and it's not just us holding them accountable, of course, like that's obviously a thing. We do hold them our students accountable, but it's the fact that they hold accountable to each other, that
I agree.
accountability component.
I agree with that. This was really an awesome group because this group outside of class got together the most out of
Yeah,
all the classes I've ever done.
yeah,
Where, they were like, oh, I was blah, blah, blah. And I was studying with this person last night, and we meet every Tuesday when we're not in class, or, I see this person every Saturday. And that was really encouraging for me. But more importantly, the amount of accountability that that provides is incredible because Now you are have to talk to somebody else and actually go through the material. And it's very different than studying alone because you know what studying alone is like, right?
Oh God, yeah.
I sit down, I go
You
to the
half-ass stuff,
cabinet.
and majority of the days, but the accountability factor does come in. And I really like the fact that whether we have 6 students or 8 students, that we do pairs, right?
Yes.
Either pairs of twos or pairs of threes, and then we get them to rotate. And I feel like whenever we go through these rooms, and I remember like sometimes we'll see student A, B, and C together, and like they're literally like talking to each other. They're like, but I was thinking about it from this way. Oh, but I was thinking about it from this way. Oh, the third one's probably just like taking it all in because the third one's probably on the, like they need more of a uplifting. So naturally, what I saw happening in this class specifically was we have A and B student who's like discussing on their approach on why they selected their, their specific answer with their knowledge base. So they're sharing their own knowledge base with each other, where the C student is just like taking it all in because the C student is like, holy crap, like I need to know all this stuff. So it's like active learning the whole time.
Yeah.
It's kind of like think about it this way. So let's just say like you're in a bar in LA and I just show up and you're like, yeah, man, like I've never been to St. Pete, Florida. And I was like, dude, like it's one of the beautiful things. Like you go into the bridge and you have this and this and this. You basically learned a lot about St. Pete, Florida, just by listening it from me, where you're telling me about LA, about these beaches that are so exclusive. And I'm like, holy crap. So we just basically like learn from each other by sharing our experiences and our knowledge base, right? Rather than going into a textbook and trying to read about it. And I think it just hits differently from that accountability standpoint.
I agree. And I think when you go back to the textbook after that, you're like, oh, that was what was Raman was saying, or that's what or this person taught me this, and oh, now I'm getting a little bit more detail from the book. And it's not that those two things that learning from each other supersedes the book, or the book supersedes. I think they have to work together.
Yes.
Those two things, you need a bit of passive and then you need a little bit of active learning, but I think that it is in line with the way that most of us learn, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I did this thing because I was talking to my buddy and they swore by it. We learn from each other all the time. We've been doing it since we were kids, right? Think about elementary school. When I learned math in elementary school and they were teaching us fractions, they were doing it in blocks. And this kid would say, no. And you'd say, no, this is how you do it. And the other kid would be like, no, this is how you do it. And it was that type of thing where kids are learning from each other. And you watch it, it's just natural for any of us. You see it with animals, you see it with humans, right? You put two dogs together, the dogs learn from each other.
Yeah.
One dog is really well trained, the other dog starts to pay attention and goes, how come when they do that they get a treat? Okay, I'm gonna do that too. I'm gonna learn how to sit too. As humans, we also learn from each other. And it's kind of incredible that you look at anywhere around the world, right? Great businesses. What makes them great? They have great culture because people have there is a an environment and a culture of accountability,
Right.
right? You look at the 96 Bulls, the 2018 Warriors, right? Everybody talks about those sports teams having cultures of accountability where everybody was responsible for something and they needed to do their job and do it at the highest, their to the best of their ability.
Right.
And I know that, again, even when you're in the same company and you go from one office to the next, what's different? Why are there so many high producers in one office and so many terrible producers in another?
Right.
There's a culture of accountability,
Right.
right? And that's the thing here is that we had a culture of accountability where you and I held their feet to the fire. We were not shy or bashful telling somebody they needed to do more work outside of class, or sometimes that they just needed to slow the heck down. You know,
Especially that one student, I mean, I just kept on telling her repetitively, and then eventually, I think that's where she learned it. She was like, you know what? Okay, I do need to, put my, check myself and put whatever it is out the door, and just focus on what I'm being told.
yeah,
I think this is where the accountability component as instructors come in because we evaluate them, we understand what they're doing, and then we're able to give them proper feedback.
Right.
Sometimes, we got to be like that rough parent, right? But I
Yep.
feel like students appreciate it, especially you're paying a premium price for it. Trust me, I don't want to, you don't want me to be your friend and just kind of keep like, yeah, it's
No,
okay, like keep
no.
going.
We are friendly, but we're not your friend till after class.
Right, exactly.
Right. And I think, kudos to the student for listening and taking the feedback because it takes a big person to give feedback. That's hard to hear. And it takes an even bigger person to accept that feedback and go, you're right. I got to do it.
Yeah,
Because the natural thing is to be defensive,
right.
so I think, from both sides, I think sometimes we getting on people might seem like we're being mean, uh, but we're not. We're actually doing you the best service that we can by holding you accountable and holding your feet to the fire. That's why you've come to class. And the beauty of this is we really didn't get a whole lot of pushback from our students in here. When we held them accountable, they were more than willing to change what they were doing. And I think that's why they were so successful is they didn't take any personal insult on that. Like, hey, you're studying on this stinks. And they're like, okay, tell me what to do to fix it.
Yeah,
And we're like, do X, Y, and Z. And they're like, okay. And they did it and they succeeded. I think removing your ego from that is a big deal. I think it's a hard thing to do, but they did. And I think that's why they succeeded because we're giving you the fastest way because you and I have kind of done the long way of things and the crappy way of things and the bad studying. And we've done so much bad studying to get to good studying that we are just trying to give everybody the good studying.
right.
Let's do our last piece.
Yeah, the last but not least, I'd say was having the group dynamic structure, right?
Yeah.
Just kind of like being in that group. And I kind of mentioned earlier where, these students are able to lift themselves up because, we go in, it's just kind of like we see them just work with each other and bridging their knowledge gap from by learning from each other. Obviously, we step in when we need to share, what we do, and I feel like that structure itself is extremely effective.
Hmm. I loved our rotations because the rotations evolved over time.
Yeah.
And our group dynamic didn't start off really anything special. It was a couple of people who were coming to class. And then as people started to get to know each other, we
Yeah.
saw our group dynamic really evolve and where people were texting each other, they were checking in with each other, they were, emailing each other.
Right.
And so there's the element of support there. But the thing that I loved in that group dynamic was the way people were learning from each other
Yeah.
where I think I'm a little shy, I'm reserved. I don't want to put my answer up on the screen. And there's an element that we force you to put it up on the screen because in order to learn, you have to be open.
Yeah.
You have to be open to criticism. You have to be open to being told that, hey, maybe the way that you did it was inefficient or wrong, or that maybe you should look at it this way. And, we initially were going through and people would share their answers, say, I had this and you had this. Okay, let's. And then we saw at the end, like, we would come to the end of class and people like, this person had this and I had this.
It
We
just
weren't sure which one it was. We kind of argued it out. We still couldn't come to an answer. And I was like, that's where the magic happens
yeah.
is that two people kind of holding their ground and trying to figure out who's who. And then you would hear you go, this is the answer. And they go, damn it, you were right on this. That's exactly what they
It's
said
it's
in
just
class.
it's just watching them is so beautiful, right? Like from week
Yeah.
one all the way out to like the last few classes. Like it's just because they evolve so much, their confidence goes up, their engagement goes up, and I feel like that group dynamic itself, it gives them the confidence to like, okay, like I'm ready to go take this test.
Hell yeah.
You
Hell
know,
yeah. And
that's
and
probably one
I
of the most. I feel like I wish we could do like a sneak peek of like every week of a student, like our class. So
yeah.
people could see like how this is evolving, like from like the week one to like the last class.
Yeah.
Maybe one of the future episodes, huh?
Yeah, I mean, that would be cool to see like cuts from class where we kind of record them week by week to see where they are.
Yeah,
It's like
kind of give
taking
like a
the
little sneak peek so people can see like, yeah, it's just kind of like wow, like look at these people just evolving.
we should it's like the first day of school, last day of school
Yeah,
picture.
right, exactly.
But I think this was really honestly one of an incredible group. Um, and I'll tell you, we had some people in this group that a shout out to everybody in this group because they truly deserve the credit. They worked their butts off. It is one thing to get instruction and it's another thing to take instruction. And I think sometimes we couldn't gentle parent. We had to sometimes give a little bit of tough love. And I think it's unique when everybody's coming in and they're open to that. So kudos to this group because, you know, I think we did a fantastic job as the instructors of this course. And we've put something together that is truly special. And it's something that I'm excited to see how it continues to evolve. But kudos to this group because they did the work. They worked. They worked their butt off. They cut off their schedules. They cut off a lot of their social lives. It's funny. One person in the group came back and was like, "This is the healthiest I've ever been." They're like, I was so like regimented that I was going to yoga more than I've ever done before, and I was like, "That's funny. You're gonna leave CFP with a six pack
Yeah.
and letters."
Right, right.
But absolutely incredible group. So, for those of you who've been wondering, how did we do this? Hopefully, this gives you guys some insight as to how this class evolved and some of the nuance. It's not exactly what you think it's going to be. I think we're all looking for a magic bullet, but the reality of it is that what Raman and I have done in this class is take it back to raw academics, the
Yep.
stuff that truly works, and not trying to give you some magic bullet that's convenient or you can do on your cell phone. It's sometimes having to do the brutal hard work of learning a new topic. So we hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we will see you guys next week.